Hello everyone, and welcome to this technical webcast on eBusiness Server from SDS. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email them to us at the email address shown on your screen, info@sdsusa.com, and we'll respond back to you as soon as we can. Here's the agenda for today's presentation. Our objective is to provide you with a brief background of our company, an overview of the features and functions of eBusiness Server, and then we'll spend the bulk of our time covering the technical details for installing eBusiness Server on the various operating system platforms. I'd like to introduce our SDS team for this webinar. And yes, those are real caricatures of both of us. We had these done at a recent shared technical conference. I'd like to introduce Colin Vander Ross. He's our Senior Systems Engineer here at SDS. He has over 25 years as a customer responsible for networks for a large bank. He's been at SDS for the past 6 years, focused on network software solutions and security solutions. And I'm Deb Hodson. I'm the sales manager at SDS. I've been here for 5 years, and prior to that, I spent a number of years at IBM, HP, Candle, the Omegamon performance company, all in sales and consulting positions. Well, let's take a quick view of our company. SDS, or Software Diversified Services, has been in business around 30 years, actually 32 years to be exact. Our company designs and develops software for numerous platforms. We have world-class customer support with products and partner products spanning network solutions, security solutions, and performance management, along with cost-saving solutions. For today's discussion, we'll focus on eBusiness Server that we've taken over from the McAfee Intel company. More about this in a moment. As I mentioned, SDS has a wealth of experience on all of these operating systems, including z/OS, Windows, and the Unix platforms. Let's take a moment to review the market and business motivators. What's driving companies to take a serious look at protecting their data? You're probably aware of some of the compliance measures that have been introduced over the years. The PCI DSS, or Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, is a set of requirements designed to ensure that all companies that process, store, or transmit credit card data and information, that they maintain a secure environment. PCI applies to all organizations or merchants, regardless of size or number of transactions, that accepts, transmits, or stores any cardholder data. Depending upon which industry you work in, a different set of compliance standards may apply to you. Also, your trading partners may be the reason why you need to ensure that your files are encrypted during transmission. And corporate security policies require encryption of valuable company information. The 2013 Ponemon Institute study that we're showing right now was conducted for security breaches. I'm just going to share a few slides with you. This particular slide shows average size of data breaches for organizations in the 9 countries represented in this particular research. As you can see, at 34,249, Australia has the highest number of breached records. Our sample of Japanese organizations, on the other hand, experienced the lowest average number of breach records at about 18,000. Now, by design, the data breach cases included in this research study had a minimum value of 1,000 records and a maximum value of 100,000 records. We don't include data breach cases in excess of 100,000 records because this would adversely affect the findings, and it's not really representative of the data breaches most companies experience. Here's the average organizational cost in US dollars of data breach by country. As you can see in this particular slide, the US experienced the highest cost average at more than $5.4 million, followed by Germany at $4.8 million. In sharp contrast, samples of Brazilian and Indian companies experienced the lowest total average cost at about $1.3 million and $1.1 million, respectively. Malicious or criminal attacks are most often the cause of data breach globally, according to the Ponemon Institute report from 2013. This particular chart provides a summary of the main root causes of data breach on a consolidated basis for all 9 country samples. As you can see, over 37% of incidents involved a malicious or criminal attack. 35% concerned a negligent employee or contractor, so this is the human factor. And then 29% involved system glitches that included both IT and business process failures. Well, for those of you that don't know, and why we're doing this webinar today, is we had a big announcement back in October. Effective October 1st, SDS now provides the support, maintenance, and new enhancements for the E-Business Server product line. We took over the product line from McAfee Intel. Now what this means is that we, SDS, have the source code in-house. We've already come out with a new release for the ZOS version of the software, and we're working on Windows and the Unix versions. This is great news for those of you in the audience who are current customers. As an E-Business Server customer, support continues uninterrupted with all current contracts honored. We'll even work with your resellers to ensure you're renewed with support at your last year's rate. And all while enjoying the SDS track record of great support and product platform knowledge. I'm now going to hand it over to Colin for a technical update and all the details about installing E-Business Server on the different platforms. Colin?
Thank you, Deb, and welcome to everyone. And thanks for taking time out to join us for this E-Business Server webcast. So my plan is to provide you with a general overview of E-Business Server and thereafter discuss installing E-Business Server on the different operating systems. E-Business Server is based on the McAfee's cryptographic SDK or Software Developers Kit, which is based on Open PGP. It makes use of public key cryptography. So in a nutshell, once you've obtained a copy of someone's public key, you can tell E-Business Server how you feel about the key, whether or not you've made sure that the key has not been tampered with, and that it really belongs to the purported owner. It provides strong encryption. You can generate X.509 certificates to allow organizations to create in-house certificate authorities. E-Business Server supports international PGP standards and protocols, as well as a list of major certificate authorities. It provides key management. It generates, disables, re-enables, revokes keys, and changes trust criteria with key management. It also provides non-repudiation, so using electronic signatures so a sender cannot deny a file was sent. SDAs or self-decrypting archives are also supported on those platforms where there is no presence of PGP, and also the PGP archive reader is also supported. Before a file is encrypted, files are automatically compressed. Data compression saves on bandwidth and disk space, and more importantly, strengthens cryptographic security. Most cryptanalysis techniques exploit patterns found in the plain text to crack the cipher. Compression, however, reduces these patterns in the plain text, thereby greatly enhancing resistance to cryptanalysis. It can secure files over 4 gig. E-Business Server provides for cross-platform support, so it allows for encryption on one platform and decryption on another with broad platform support. E-Business Server integrates into existing E-Business Server processes and can also enable new ones. And it also provides APIs for easy integration with applications and processes. So to reiterate, these are the platforms that E-Business Server is supported on. As can be seen, it covers almost the entire spectrum of operating systems. Let's review the key concepts. So two complementary keys called a key pair are used to maintain secure communications. One of the keys is designated as a private key to which only you have access, and the other key is a public key which you freely exchange with other eBusiness Server users. Both your private and your public keys are stored in keyring files, and as the name implies, only you have access to your private key, but in order to correspond with other eBusiness Server users, you need a copy of their public keys and they need a copy of yours. You can use your private key to sign the email messages and file attachments you send to other folks, and to decrypt the messages and files that they send to you. Conversely, you use the public keys of others to send them encrypted emails and files, and also to verify their digital signatures. These are some of the supported ciphers that is supported on eBusiness Server. So you can specify which symmetric cipher eBusiness Server should use to encrypt the session key. So there's a number of different ones: IDEA, Triple Des, CAST, AES. This parameter specifies the cipher preference when generating a new key pair and when changing the self-signature or passphrase on your private key, and also when performing a conventional encryption operation, except when you are creating an SDA or PGP archive, which always then uses CAST 5. Here you can see some of the other supported ciphers, so some of the asymmetric ones and some of the hash algorithms. Let's talk about the ways that you can access eBusiness Server. So there are a number of different interfaces that you can use to access eBusiness Server. Some folks still prefer the good old-fashioned command line interface. That works pretty well. You can enter encryption and decryption commands from the command line. Also, to make it simpler to call eBusiness Server commands from other languages, and also to improve performance when commands are called repeatedly, a simple C language API for entering eBusiness Server commands is included in the product. You can also access the product using the Java administration client, which is the way you can manage keys. Here are some of the commands, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with some of these. The armor command, so use that to encode a file with eBusiness Server base 64 encoding with optional compression. The decrypt command, so use that to decrypt data that was previously encrypted. The encrypt command. If you're not sure of the syntax of a command or what commands are available to use on eBusiness Server, enter the help command. The key edit command, that specifies the key pair to be updated. If you need to export a key and need to send that off to someone, use the key export command. The key list, so that displays all the keys on your keyring. To sign a key, use the key sign command. The list aliases command. The sign command performs a cryptographic signature on input data, and if you need to know the version of the product you're running, then enter the version command. The wipe command is a pretty powerful command, and that performs a secure deletion of files that were previously encrypted, so use that if you want to get rid of the files on disk. Okay, that was an overview of some of the commands that is available to you. Here's one more that you may be familiar with. I'm sure folks that use the product on System Z, and here you can see a screenshot of a command where I'm listing some keys, and this is used, or I've invoked this using the TSO interface of eBusiness Server. Let's move along and discuss some of the eBusiness APIs that is available to you. So eBusiness Server supports simple commands or optional native APIs, including the C or COM, Rex, and Java to enable encryption for all data communicated with partners from the backend systems, including customized in-house applications. It imitates the command line, allowing eBusiness Server commands to be called through the API. The central function in the API imitates the command line, allowing eBusiness Server commands normally issued from the command line to be called through the API. There are 4 supporting functions, one for freeing allocated memory, translating returned error codes, and the initializing and cleaning up of APIs. The eBusiness Server API is supported on Windows, Unix, and on System Z, where it takes advantage of the new System Rex, or SysRex as it's called. Let me briefly expand on some of the APIs. So this one is called the PGP eBusiness Init. In order to set up the proper environment for eBusiness Server API calls, you use the PGP eBusiness Init function. This must be called first before calling any other eBusiness Server API functions. This creates a context of type PGP context ref that is used in subsequent eBusiness Server API calls in the current process, including APIs from threads spawned from the current process. Here's the PGP eBusiness Cleanup. So this releases a context created by the PGP init or PGP biz init. Call this function when a process is finished making the eBusiness Server API calls or before creating a new PGP eBiz context ref. This is the PGP eBiz. This specifies an eBusiness Server command. So this is where you specify whether it's an encryption or decryption process. And there you can see some of the syntax of the command, and also some of the parameters with regard to using the PGP eBiz. The API, this particular one, the PGP eBusiness Free, so this output buffers is used in the function are allocated internally by the API. Use the PGP eBiz Free is provided to free these buffers, and buffers are allocated by the PGP eBiz that must be freed upon completion of the call before reusing the pointers for which memory was allocated. The last one, the PGP eBiz error string. So this converts an eBusiness Server API return code into a text string that describes the error, so making it a lot easier to problem diagnose. All of these APIs are clearly documented in the eBusiness Server manuals, and if you need additional information on them, please consult them for additional how you could actually implement or execute these APIs in your day-to-day encryption and decryption processes. So this is the eBusiness Server administration utility. This is an optional piece of the product. The eBusiness Server administration utility provides a graphical user interface for eBusiness Server, specifically its key management and configuration management features. The eBusiness Server administration utility consists of the 2 components, a service and a console. The service resides on the same computer as eBusiness Server, but you can install the console on any Windows computer. This means that you can use the eBusiness Server administration utility to access and configure eBusiness servers remotely. And lastly, the console communicates with the server over an encrypted TCP/IP connection using TLS. Here's a screenshot of the administration utility console. So to start the admin console, go to the Windows Start menu and select the Programs button, and then eBusiness Server and the administration client, and that'll launch the administration utility console for you. The administration client allows you to create and manage your keys. So on the left hand side is the console tree, and on the right is the main panel. This particular screen on the admin client shows the list of keys that has been generated here in my environment. Here I've highlighted one of my keys, and now I can see the properties for that key in the bottom portion of my screen. You can get additional information on the keys by selecting any one of the tabs on the configuration panel. Here I've selected the encryption, decryption tab, and now you can get some of the information with regard to the encryption and decryption process. This is some information on the eBusiness Server client, and this is soon to be made generally available. You may remember that Deb talking about it in introduction, where we've taken over the support of this product, and we're still in the process of testing it, but I thought this would be of interest to you for those folks that want to make use of the eBusiness Server client. So eBusiness Server client, the administration allows the creation of custom self-extracting packages that clients can use to install eBusiness Server. The client provides a simple drag and drop interface, so that's really simple when you need to send files to other folks. It allows users to exchange data with other partners, and the eBusiness Server client automatically encrypts, signs, and sends files to your business partners. It uses predefined key generation and file transfer setting. So why would you consider using eBusiness Server client? So you would use this eBusiness Server client administration to create custom packages for multiple client groups. So that makes it really simple when you need to send out encrypted files to a number of different business partners. Each client profile can be configured to allow or disallow whether clients can generate keys or sign data. It can be configured for the transfer method to be used. And from an installation point of view, clients can install one-click installations, which makes the installation of the client really, very simple. Okay, let's move along and talk a bit, before I go to that, let's move along and talk a bit about installing the product on the different operating systems. Let's begin with Windows. Here you can see some of the system server requirements, or the server requirements from a system point of view on the Windows platform. So Windows 7 with Windows Server 2012, Windows 2000 with Server Pack 4 or later, Windows XP Professional with Server Pack 1 or later, Windows 2003 with Server Pack 1 or later, Windows Vista, Windows 2008, and Windows Server 2012 are supported. From a storage point of view, we require 192 meg of RAM, that's the minimum, and at least 40 meg disk space for the software. We spoke about the administration console clients, so here you can see the requirements for installing that. We require the Java Standard Edition runtime environment, so version 1.4 or later, at least 32 meg of RAM and 40 meg of disk space for the software. Installing eBusiness Server on Windows is very simple. Once you've downloaded the eBusiness Server file from the SDS website, double click on the setup.exe file, review the license agreement and select yes and OK to accept the licensing terms. The setup type dialog will appear. You then can choose whether you want to perform a complete installation or a custom installation. If you selected custom, then select the appropriate components that you want to be installed with eBusiness Server on Windows, and then the ready to install program dialog will appear, and hit the yes button. It'll then go about installing the product for you on the Windows platform, and once you complete, hit the finish button. If you have a requirement to installing the product on your Linux platforms, then here are the system requirements. So Red Hat ES 3.0, Red Hat AS and ES 4.0, Red Hat 5.0, SUSE ES9 is supported, SUSE ES10. At least 64 meg of RAM is required to install the product on Linux, and at least 75 meg of disk space is required from a disk space point of view. Installing the product on Linux is pretty simple. Once you've downloaded the tarball from the SDS website, you need to uncompress the package, so you would use the gzip command, and there you can see the syntax of the command. Again, these are all documented clearly in the appropriate installation manuals. You would then need to log in as root and run the install script. So there you can see the install.sh command, and that'll go about installing the product for you on your Linux platform. And then to launch the eBusiness Server application on Linux, enter the EBS command, and now you're ready to begin your encryption and decryption processes on Linux. You can certainly install the product on AIX, Solaris, and HPUX. If you have any of these platforms, they're not widely used, but they certainly are supported from an e-business server point of view. You can contact us if you have a requirement to install this on any one of these platforms, and we will direct you to the appropriate code and assist you with the installation on any one of these platforms. Okay, let's go about and talk about installing the product on System Z. Here you can see what the requirements is from a ZOS point of view. So ZOS 1.7 all the way through to 1.13 is supported, and we also have done our due diligence on ZOS 2.1. The language environment is required to install the product. There is an optional piece that you can choose to install. So if you do have a requirement to encrypt files under Unix system services, then be sure to go about installing this piece of the product. It does have a nice TSO interface, so you can invoke it under TSO, and you then can perform some of the encryption and decryption processes. And from a batch point of view, this is probably where most folks exploit and use eBusiness Server, is in the batch environment, where once files become available after a batch run, or maybe after the production run at night, these batch processes are automatically done under the covers, where you'd encrypt files before they need to be sent to your different business partners. Approximately 80 meg of free disk space is required, and also be sure that the C-Run and C-Run2 libraries are part of your linked list prior to installing the product on ZOS. When you download the distribution, there are 3 files. Once you've unzipped them, you'll see there's 3 files. So there's the eBusiness XMIT file, that's the binary file that need to be copied into a ZOS dataset. There's the eBusiness installation JCL, so that's the JCL to install the product, and then the eBusiness tar, and that's the tar archive that holds the files for eBusiness Java and the C++ APIs. Pre-allocate the sequential datasets as per the DCB recommendations in the manual. Then transfer the eBusiness 760, and that's the latest version of the product. Send that into the pre-allocated dataset, and also the eBusiness installation JCL. Send it up to the pre-allocated dataset that you've already allocated. You would then go about editing the eBusiness installation JCL and customize it to your environment standards. So set the appropriate high-level qualifiers. Once you've submitted the job, make sure it returns with a return code of 0. Then customize the batch job at setup, and that'll be in the sampler library, and submit it, and that'll go about installing the eBusiness environment for you. To run the eBusiness server in batch, you will need to edit the PGP proc in the SAMP library and set the appropriate high-level qualifiers. If not, you may get some JSL errors when you execute it in batch mode. And also, if you need to execute it in the Rex environment or in the TSO environment, you need to go into PGP TSO and also set the appropriate high-level qualifiers, and then you can execute the PGP TSO, which will then invoke it in the ISPF format for you. If you do want to install the optional piece, so installing it on a USS, you would have to binary FTP the file into the USR local. If you don't want to use that as a default, you can change it to an alternate directory. Issue the SU command, and then issue the extract command. There you can see the syntax of the command. That'll previous command creates a number of different subdirectories. Set the permissions and ownerships to the created files, so make sure you have the correct permissions and ownerships. Then make sure the base /bin directory is in the path for the executable and in the lib path for the DLL, and the recommendation is adding this directory to the global path and lib path setting in the etc profile. Set up the license file as per the install manual, and to verify that it is working correctly in your API, the USS environment, enter the PGP command with an option. Okay, that describes the installation process on the different operating systems that is supported on an eBusiness server point of view. Let's summarize what we've spoken about. So eBusiness server compresses and encrypts data at the same time. It is truly a cross-platform solution. It is really easy to install and exploit. So as you saw during the presentation, how you can go about installing it on the different operating systems. The sample APIs is really easy to use. In fact, a lot of the feedback we've got from existing customers is that is really widely exploited. It makes their life easier for their day-to-day encryption and decryption processes. Based on the open standard, so you can send to any platform that uses the standard PGP. So whether you're sending from ZOS to Windows and they do not have eBusiness Server running on that platform, as long as it adheres to the PGP standard, you can certainly decrypt some of those or encrypt some of those files. It incorporates into existing processes. Again, one of those products, once installed, it kind of does the job for you under the covers. You don't have to really maintain the product too much. We do let customers know when we have new distributions available, and that is certainly something that you can download from the SDS website. From a ZOS point of view, you have the option of encrypting different types of files, so whether it's PDSs or PDSE files or VSAM files, those are certainly supported. It's easy to generate and manage keys using the console key manager. The automatic conversion of ASCII to EBCDIC data, that is supported on the product. There are some offerings of the product where this is not supported, and you have to make use, for example, in the ZOS world, you have to make use of the iconv command in order to convert the data in the correct format. It is really low on CPU resources. SDS prides itself on great support, so if you have any issues, go to our website, open up a problem ticket, and you will get great response on that problem ticket. And as Deb mentioned, because we've taken over the product, you can look forward to future enhancements to the product. We also welcome you to send us some of your ideas, some of the features that you may want to see in the product. We can certainly add that to our roadmap, and you know, who knows, that might be included in a future version of the product. So thank you very much everyone for your time. I'm now going to hand it back to Deb to wrap up the session. Deb, over to you.
Thank you, Colin. Well, here's some next steps and future plans. SDS is committed to enhancing eBusiness Server, but we need to hear from you. If you're a current customer, what do you love about eBusiness? What would you like to see in the way of functions or features in the future? And if you're not a current customer, we want to hear from you as well. What needs and requirements do you have today that maybe aren't being met by your current security encryption decryption product? Please let us know. Here's just a few of the enhancements on the horizon. eBusiness Server will soon add support for the 2048-bit DSA. DSA, of course, is a FIPS standard. The U.S. National Institute for Standards and Technology, or NIST, recommends digital signatures using DSA to use 2048 bits starting in 2014. In the near future, eBusiness Server will support the zlib software library for zlib compressed data, RFC 1950. zlib supports the deflate compressed data format, RFC 1951, used by gzip, and has become a de facto standard for compression. We also plan to support the requirements for RFC 4880. All right, now what? If you're a current customer and you have a current support contract, you're good to go. Just provide us your grant letter so we have your information for our support center. If your support is coming due, please reach out to us and let us know. We'll work with your reseller to provide renewal quotes for continuing your support. And if you aren't a current eBusiness Server customer but you'd like to take a look at it, maybe you want to do a free trial, please let us know. Just send an email to info@sdsusa.com. And by the way, there's a wealth of information out on our website, everything from technical white papers, frequently asked questions, detailed product information. Well, I hope you found today's technical webinar on eBusiness Server helpful. If you have questions, again, please email us at info@sdsusa.com. Thanks for your time today, and thanks, Colin.